This is my Final Captivate project. I ran into a lot of difficulty making it, but in the process I learned a lot. First is my title slide, which I brought in the title page text with the type in feature. My background kind of exemplifies the subject that I'm covering, which is social media and teens. I chose that background specifically for the dynamic artwork. I lowered the opacity in Keynote, and then I took a screenshot and I used it as the background for that first slide. As the user goes to the next slide, after my audio completes, they're faced with this image here, which has two young teens using a laptop, and I suspect that they're using some type of video camera because the one teen has a thumbs up, which kind of exemplifies the subject again, which is teens and social media. I used a tab or a button, which was a continue button. So after the audio was completed, this slide pauses, and then the user must click continue to go to the next slide. The next slide is I really liked because it kind of shows how our teens are bombarded with so many various social media websites, and I put my rollover text on this screen, so when you go over the image, you can see that the statistic that I mentioned during this slide presents itself, which is 81% of teens use social media. And again, you have to use the button continue to the continue button to go on to the next slide. Okay, that next image is the data chart. This was originally the screen that I was only going to use a continue button on, but I ended up using it on a majority of my slides because I like that feature. It means that the user will have to interact with the presentation and have to actually click something in order to advance. This statistic was, of course, the 67% of teens actually use it daily. I'm going to go ahead and click continue and go to my next slide. This next slide, I got some advice from my classmates, which said that I should remove the black background. So I took this image that's in the center and I actually cropped out the back part with Photoshop. And then I put in two Twitter birds, which is their image. And I was able to lower the opacity of these. They don't call it opacity in this program. I believe it's called, I forget what it's called, but it lowers the saturation. So it almost gives the effect of opacity, lowering the opacity. And I thought that kind of brought the image out a little bit better and makes it a little bit more dynamic. And again, I used a continue button. And this next slide, I didn't change anything about it except I made all of these different words because on this slide I'm talking about some of the consequences of being careless with social media, suspended, arrested, fired, and bullying, and all of these have hyperlinks in them. So when you click on suspended, it actually takes you to a website that talks about a policy in New York City that the New York City schools have for social media. And it gives a definition of social media. It talks about using images, how to be how that they can be more careful, and then about some of the consequences that can happen if you're not careful. And it even talks a little bit about cyberbullying as well, even though that is another hyperlink. And I'll just click on another one, fired. I chose this one. It links you to an article that talks about some examples of social media policies that some companies have as well. I really like that feature. Again, it makes it very interactive. The person who's viewing the presentation cannot go on until they click the continue, so this screen or this slide pauses, and they'll have time to interact. And when they put their cursor over that word, a hand comes up so they know that it's some type of link or that they should click, they can click on it. Whereas when you go over the image, it just stays as an arrow. And then my final slide is, I'm going to pause it, actually is much like the first slide, which it continues on its own. It's my last slide, and it talks about a cultural dynamic of social media. The African Americans are twice as likely as white teenagers to actually use social media. I thought this was a very dynamic and very glaring statistic. I thought I would include it, and I have this cultural characteristics box with the arrow pointing at it to kind of emphasize what I speak about in the slide. This is my last slide, and then of course as you come to the end of the continuation, you are greeted with the end of my presentation. Overall, it was a very good experience. I really enjoyed using this program, Captivate. I learned a lot through trial and error. I also collaborated with one of my classmates who helped me through a lot of the struggles that I had. And overall, I'm very pleased with it. And I'm including, or have included above this posting, the MP4 of the final project. Thank you.